"Officer, before you touch that truck, you might want to ask her where she got my wife's signature." The words left my mouth quietly, almost swallowed by the diesel growl of the tow truck idling at the curb. It was 7:12 on a cold Tuesday morning. Blue lights crawled across the front windows of my house. Red flashes washed over the maple trees, the wet pavement, and the open door of my garage. The air smelled like burned coffee, damp leaves, and hot exhaust. Two police cruisers blocked my driveway. Behind them stood Diane Caldwell, president of the Briarwood Glen Homeowners Association, holding a thick folder against her cream-colored coat like it was a loaded weapon. Her white SUV sat across the street, engine running. She had brought an audience, too. 3 neighbors watched from their porches. One held a phone in front of her face. Another pretended to collect his newspaper while staring directly at the officers surrounding my truck. Diane smiled when she saw me. Not a friendly smile. The kind people wear when they believe the ending has already been written. "Mr. Reed has refused every lawful opportunity to resolve this matter," she announced. "The outstanding balance is $3,900. We now have authorization to remove the vehicle and secure the property." The tow truck driver lowered his steel hook. Chains scraped across the asphalt. That sound hit something deep in my chest. My truck wasn't expensive. 12 years old. Scratched doors. Sawdust ground into the floor mats. But it had hauled every cabinet, table, and porch swing I had built since opening my shop. Diane looked at it and saw an eyesore. I looked at it and saw 15 years of work. Officer Lucas Bennett stepped between us. He was broad-shouldered, maybe late 30s, with tired eyes and a body camera blinking red beneath his badge. "Sir, I need you to stay back," he said. "I'm standing on my own driveway." "I understand. But the HOA has provided an emergency enforcement order." Diane's smile widened. She opened the folder and handed him a document sealed inside a clear plastic sleeve. The paper looked official from 10 feet away. County crest. Case number. Bold lettering across the top. Emergency civil enforcement order. Bennett studied it beneath the pulsing lights. His partner walked toward my truck. I heard the metallic click of the tow hook opening. Then the front door behind me swung wide. My wife, Evelyn, stepped onto the porch wearing a charcoal gray coat over her work clothes. Her dark blonde hair was still pinned loosely from breakfast. Steam curled from the coffee mug in her left hand. She looked more annoyed about the cold than the police. Diane turned toward her. "Oh, good," she said. "Perhaps you can explain to your husband that clerical paperwork from the courthouse does not make him a legal expert." Evelyn stopped halfway down the steps. She stared at the document in Bennett's hands. The steam from her coffee drifted past her face. "Officer," she said, "would you read the issuing authority?" Bennett glanced down. "County Civil Court. And the assigned judicial seat?" His eyes moved to the bottom of the page. "Seat 4. Something changed in Evelyn's expression. Not fear. Recognition. She placed her mug on the porch rail and reached into her leather handbag. The zipper made a soft ripping sound through the morning silence. Diane rolled her eyes. "This delay is unnecessary." Evelyn removed a black leather credential wallet and opened it toward Officer Bennett. He looked at the identification, then at Evelyn, then back at the order. The color drained from his face so quickly I could see it happen beneath the flashing blue lights. His partner stopped beside my truck. The tow driver let the chain fall from his hand. Evelyn's voice stayed calm. "My name is Judge Evelyn Reed," she said. "I hold seat 4. Diane's smile disappeared. Bennett looked down at the signature printed across the bottom of the enforcement order. Evelyn stepped closer. "I did not sign that document." The only sound left was the low diesel rumble of the tow truck and the faint electronic chirp of Bennett's body camera, recording every second. Diane finally understood that the paper she had brought to take my truck carried the forged signature of the woman standing 6 feet away. But she still didn't understand the worst part. That signature was only the first lie we were about to uncover. What would you do if someone called the police using a court order signed by your own wife? 6 weeks earlier, Diane Caldwell had looked at my work boots and decided she already knew everything about me. "My name is Mason Reed. I was 43 years old, owner of Reed Custom Woodworks, and the kind of man who trusted measurements more than promises. Would never lied. Cut a board too short, and it stayed short. Ignore a crack, and eventually the whole piece split. People were different. They smiled while hiding the damage. Evelyn and I had lived in Briarwood Glen for almost 4 years. Our house sat near the end of a quiet cul-de-sac lined with maple trees, identical mailboxes, and lawns trimmed so evenly they looked printed. I bought the place because of the garage. 2 wide bays, high ceiling, enough space for my truck, my tools, and a workbench scarred by 15 years of honest labor. On cold mornings, the room smelled like cedar dust, machine oil, and the dark coffee Evelyn left beside my clamps before driving to work. She never talked much about her job at home. To the neighborhood, Evelyn worked at the county courthouse. That was how she preferred it. She spent her days in a black robe deciding civil disputes, but she refused to bring that authority through our front door. At home, she was the woman who stole my side of the blanket, forgot where she put her glasses, and corrected my grammar while eating toast over the kitchen sink. I once built her a small walnut box for her judicial credentials. Brass hinges, red felt lining, her initials carved inside the lid. She kept it in the hall cabinet beneath a stack of grocery coupons. Power, Evelyn always said, should never need to advertise itself. Diane Caldwell believed the exact opposite. She first arrived at our house on a Saturday morning in a white Lexus SUV polished so brightly I could see my reflection in the door. The engine purred at the curb while she marched up my driveway carrying a red folder. Her perfume reached me before her voice did. Sharp flowers. Expensive soap. Something chemical underneath. I was sanding the edge of a dining table in the open garage. Fine oak dust floated through the sunlight, turning every beam golden. Diane stopped 3 feet from the threshold and stared at my equipment. Table saw, planer, clamps, extension cords. Her lips tightened. "Mr. Reed," she said, "we have received concerns about industrial activity." I switched off the sander. The sudden silence rang in my ears. "From whom?" She gave me a patient smile, the kind adults use on children who have disappointed them. "Community complaints are confidential." Across the street, not one curtain moved. What rule am I breaking? Diane opened her folder and tapped a page with one manicured fingernail. Briarwood Glen is a residential community. Commercial operations are not permitted. I'm not running customers through the neighborhood. I build furniture. The garage door is open for ventilation. The distinction is irrelevant. "No," I said. "The distinction is the entire rule." Her smile froze. That was the first time Diane realized I had read the HOA covenants. Evelyn stepped into the garage carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She wore jeans, an old navy sweater, and no makeup. Nothing about her suggested a courtroom. Diane glanced at her. "And you are?" "My wife, Evelyn." "I work at the courthouse," Evelyn added. Diane's shoulders relaxed. "Oh, clerical work must be exhausting." Evelyn took a slow sip of coffee. "You'd be surprised." Diane turned back to me and slid a red notice onto my workbench. The paper landed beside the unfinished table with a dry slap. "Consider this a courtesy warning." I picked it up. At the upper right corner, a curved black toner mark stained the paper like a tiny crescent moon. The violation cited Section 8:14. I had memorized the covenants when we bought the house. There was no Section 8:14. I looked up, but Diane was already walking away, her heels clicking across my driveway like a countdown. Evelyn stood beside me, watching the white Lexus disappear around the corner. "You going to tell her?" I asked. "That she insulted a county judge?" I nodded. Evelyn placed her coffee beside the walnut table. "No." A faint smile touched the corner of her mouth. "Let her keep talking." The second notice arrived before the first one had stopped smelling like printer ink. Monday morning, 6:18 a.m. I found it taped to the center of my garage door, bright red against white paint, fluttering in the cold wind like a warning flag. The adhesive cracked when I pulled it loose. Unauthorized commercial vehicle. My truck sat exactly where it had sat for 4 years. Inside my own driveway. I read the citation twice while the neighborhood sprinklers hissed across the lawns. Section 10:6 prohibited commercial vehicles exceeding 3/4-ton capacity or displaying exterior advertising. My pickup was a half-ton. The magnetic company signs were locked inside the garage. Diane had cited another rule that did not apply. At the top corner of the paper was the same crescent-shaped toner stain. I carried it inside and placed it beside the first notice on the kitchen counter. Evelyn studied both while spreading butter across a piece of toast. "Same printer," she said. "You can tell from that." "I can tell someone has been ignoring a maintenance warning." She tapped the curved black mark. "Damaged roller. It repeats in the same position every time." I slid the notices into a clear plastic sleeve. That became my morning routine. Coffee, truck keys, red paper. Diane moved quickly once she realized I would not close my garage. The third notice accused me of excessive noise because I had used a hand sander at 11 on a Saturday morning. The fourth cited visible building materials. 2 oak boards had been stacked behind the garage door, invisible from the street unless someone walked halfway up my driveway. The fifth accused me of releasing hazardous dust into a residential area. That one arrived while rain hammered the roof so hard I could barely hear myself laugh. Every citation carried a $100 daily fine. Every citation referenced a hearing I had never been offered. I emailed the board after each notice. Short messages. No anger. No threats. Please identify the applicable covenant. Please provide the complaint date. Please schedule the required violation hearing. Diane responded with polished sentences that answered nothing. Your concerns have been noted. The board's authority is clearly established. Continued resistance may result in additional enforcement. By the end of the second week, the red envelopes came every morning. Sometimes Diane delivered them herself. I would hear the soft purr of her Lexus, then the click of her heels on the driveway. She never rang the bell. She taped the notice to the garage and stood there long enough for my security camera to capture her satisfied little smile. Then she looked directly into the lens. That was the part one remembered. She knew she was being recorded. She simply believed she could not be touched. I kept working on the dining table. It was solid white oak, 8 feet long, built for Daniel and Rachel Morris, a young military couple 3 houses down. Daniel was returning from deployment in November, and Rachel wanted the table ready before Thanksgiving. The planer roared. Fresh sawdust filled the garage with a warm, dry smell. Each pass revealed cleaner grain beneath the rough surface. Outside, Diane kept adding layers of paper. Inside, I kept removing them from the wood. On day 17, I sent a certified request for a formal hearing. The postal receipt showed someone named Trevor Lang signed for it at the HOA office. 2 days later, Diane emailed me a hearing date scheduled for the previous evening. When I pointed that out, she claimed it was a typographical error. The replacement date arrived after that hearing had supposedly occurred, too. Then came the minutes. According to the document, I had failed to appear, refused mediation, and behaved in a threatening manner toward board members. I had never entered the room. Evelyn read the pages at our dining table that night. The refrigerator hummed behind her. Rain tapped softly against the windows. They're manufacturing a record, she said. For a garage violation? For something larger. I wanted to confront Diane. Evelyn told me not to. Keep every envelope, she said. Save the original files. Let her establish the pattern. So I did. 39 mornings. 39 red notices. 39 identical crescent stains. On the final day, Diane placed a thick envelope beneath my windshield wiper. I watched from inside the garage as she smoothed her cream-colored jacket and admired her reflection in my truck window. The total printed in bold black numbers was $3,900. Final demand. Failure to pay would result in a lien, vehicle seizure, and legal enforcement. Diane looked toward me through the open garage. You should have closed the door when I asked, she said. Then she walked away. I looked at the unfinished oak table, the red stack beside my tools, and the camera above the garage recording every step she took. She thought she had spent 39 days building a case against me. What she had really built was a timeline. The Briarwood Glen clubhouse smelled like lemon cleaner, burnt coffee, and a decision that had already been made. I arrived 10 minutes early. Diane was already seated at the center of the long folding table beneath a framed photograph of the neighborhood entrance. Trevor Lang sat to her right with a laptop open and 3 stacks of paper arranged in perfect rows. 2 other board members occupied the far end, both avoiding my eyes. There were 12 chairs for residents. Only one had been left empty. Mine. A security guard stood beside it. He wore a black polo shirt with security printed across the chest and kept one hand resting near the radio on his belt. Not a police officer. Not even close. But Diane had positioned him where everyone could see him. I set my binder on the table. 39 notices. Certified mail receipts. Printed emails. A copy of every covenant Diane had cited. The plastic sleeves made a dry clicking sound as I opened the cover. Diane lifted her wooden gavel. Mr. Reed, this is an administrative compliance review. It is not a courtroom. That's good, I said. Because none of your paperwork would survive one. A few people shifted in their chairs. Diane's fingers tightened around the gavel. Evelyn sat in the back row beside Rachel Morris. She wore a plain gray sweater and held a yellow legal pad on her lap. To anyone watching, she looked like a quiet courthouse employee supporting her husband. She had insisted on sitting with the residents. Not beside me. Not behind the board. Tonight, she said, I needed to speak as a homeowner. Diane cleared her throat. Mr. Reed has repeatedly violated community standards by operating an industrial business from a residential property. I opened the covenant booklet. Please identify the section that uses the phrase industrial business. Trevor leaned toward his microphone. The board has broad discretionary authority. That isn't a section number. Diane struck the gavel. The sharp crack bounced off the low ceiling. You will speak when recognized. You sent me a hearing notice after the hearing date. That has been addressed. You sent the second one after that date, too. Clerical errors do not erase your violations. A low murmur moved through the room. I pulled out the postal receipt. Trevor signed for my certified request 17 days ago. Why do the official minutes say I refused a hearing? Trevor's face remained still, but his left thumb began rubbing the edge of his laptop. Diane answered for him. The record reflects your lack of cooperation. The record reflects an event that never happened. The security guard took one step toward me. I did not move. Across the aisle, an older board member named Harold Pike looked down at the printed minutes in front of him. His brow furrowed. I don't remember voting on this, he said. The room went silent. Diane turned slowly. Harold, we discussed the matter through executive correspondence. I was in Arizona that week. The woman beside him, Susan Bell, lifted her copy. So was I. Trevor closed the laptop halfway. Diane struck the gavel again. This meeting is becoming disorderly. No, I said. It's becoming accurate. A phone camera rose from the second row. Mrs. Alvarez, who lived near the community pool, had been recording since I walked in. Diane noticed. Recording is prohibited. Mrs. Alvarez didn't lower the phone. Show me the rule. That question moved through the room like a spark. Diane's face hardened. She pushed a document across the table toward me. It was labeled Notice of Final Determination. The board had supposedly voted unanimously to uphold the full $3,900 fine and authorize a lien against our house. 3 signatures appeared at the bottom. Diane's, Trevor's, Harold's. Harold stared at the page. That is not my signature. Susan leaned across him. And I never attended this vote. Diane stood so quickly her chair scraped backward. These accusations are defamatory. I looked at the security guard. He looked away. Then I looked at Evelyn. She did not smile. She only wrote something on her legal pad and underlined it twice. Diane pointed toward the door. Remove Mr. Reed. Effective tomorrow morning, the lien will be filed. If payment is not received, the association will pursue seizure of the commercial vehicle and all additional remedies available under law. The guard touched my elbow. I closed the binder. Slowly, the plastic sleeves snapped together, trapping every red notice inside. As I walked toward the exit, Diane raised her voice so the entire room could hear. By the end of the month, Mr. Reed will understand that no homeowner is above this board. Outside, the night air felt cold against my face. Through the clubhouse window, I watched Trevor gather the false minutes while Diane smiled for the residents who still supported her. Evelyn joined me beside the truck. She forged 2 board signatures, I said. At least 2. She's filing the lien tomorrow. Evelyn looked back through the glass. Let her. I turned toward her. For once, could you explain what you're thinking? She slid the yellow pad into her bag. She believes every new document makes her more powerful. The clubhouse door opened behind us. Diane's laughter spilled into the parking lot. Evelyn's voice dropped. So let her keep signing things. The lien appeared on the county website at 8:03 the next morning. I knew because Evelyn was standing behind me when the red status line loaded across my laptop screen. Claim against property, $3,900. Additional legal fees pending. The kitchen smelled like coffee and cold toast. Outside, a garbage truck groaned through the cul-de-sac while its hydraulic arm crushed plastic bins one by one. For the first time since Diane started this, my hands shook. A fine was paper. A lien was a hand wrapped around our house. By noon, our electronic keys no longer opened the community pool or clubhouse. A security company placed an orange sticker on my truck warning that it was subject to removal. Then a certified letter arrived threatening foreclosure if I failed to pay within 30 days. Diane had turned 39 imaginary violations into a legal weapon. I filed an emergency challenge with the county property office that afternoon. My binder weighed almost 9 pounds by then. Emails, postal receipts, security footage, copies of every false section number. The clerk behind the glass reviewed the documents without expression. "You'll need proof that the association denied due process," she said. "I have proof." She pointed to the board minutes Diane had submitted. According to them, I had attended a hearing, shouted at the board, rejected mediation, and walked out before the vote. None of it had happened. But the document carried 3 signatures, a notary seal, and an official-looking certification page. The clerk pushed my binder back through the opening. On paper, they provided a hearing. The words tasted like metal. My challenge was temporarily denied. Diane learned about it before I made it home. She posted a message on the neighborhood portal announcing that the county had upheld the HOA's enforcement authority. By sunset, balloons hung outside the clubhouse for what she called a community standards reception. Through our kitchen window, I could see headlights turning toward the party. Music drifted across the wet lawns. So did Diane's laughter. I stood in the garage staring at the unfinished oak table. The surface had been sanded smooth, but one corner still needed shaping. I ran my palm across the grain and imagined strangers carrying my tools out after a foreclosure sale. Evelyn entered quietly. She placed the certified letter beside the 39 red notices. "This is what she wanted," I said. "Not compliance. The house." Evelyn studied the lien packet beneath the work light. Then she stopped. Her thumb moved across the embossed seal on the certification page. "This seal is mine." I looked at her. "It belongs to seat 4, she said. "But not from this case." She opened her laptop and searched the public court archive. After several minutes, she found a civil ruling she had signed 2 years earlier involving a contractor dispute. The scanned document carried the same seal, the same tiny scratch above the county eagle. Someone had copied it. My pulse began beating behind my eyes. "Can we stop them now?" "We can prove the seal came from a public document," she said. "We cannot yet prove who placed it here." From the clubhouse, a cheer rose into the night. Diane was celebrating. Evelyn closed the laptop. "She thinks the lien survived because the document looks official. Didn't it?" For today, at 10:47 that night, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. Motion detected at front door. The security footage showed Trevor Lang crossing our porch beneath the yellow light. He wore a dark raincoat and kept his face turned away from the camera. He slid a thick envelope into the mailbox. Then he wiped the handle with a handkerchief. I went outside after his car disappeared. Rainwater ran from the roof and struck the metal box with hollow taps. The envelope inside was dry, heavy, and stamped with the county crest. Emergency enforcement order. It authorized the HOA to seize my truck and requested police assistance if I resisted. At the bottom was the same crescent-shaped toner mark. Above it was a judge's signature. Evelyn stood beneath the porch light as I handed her the page. I watched the warmth leave her face. The name printed beneath the signature was Judge Evelyn Reed. Seat 4. My wife looked toward the dark clubhouse, where the last balloons twisted in the rain. "She didn't just copy my seal," Evelyn said. Her voice was almost a whisper. "She signed my name." The police arrived at 7:12 the next morning. Not one cruiser. 2. A tow truck followed them into the cul-de-sac, its amber lights spinning across the wet pavement. The diesel engine rattled beneath my bedroom window like heavy machinery at a demolition site. By the time I reached the driveway, Diane was already there. Cream-colored coat, white Lexus, red folder pressed against her chest. She looked rested, almost happy. Officer Lucas Bennett stepped from the first cruiser and adjusted the body camera clipped beneath his badge. His partner moved toward the tow driver while Diane pointed at my truck. "That is the vehicle identified in the enforcement order," she said. "Mr. Reed has been warned repeatedly." The morning air smelled like rain, burned coffee, and exhaust. I stood between the tow truck and my pickup. "Did she tell you the order was delivered after 10 o'clock last night?" Bennett raised one hand. "Sir, I need you to remain calm." "I am calm." Diane gave him a sympathetic smile. "He has been increasingly hostile throughout this process." The tow driver dragged a steel chain from the rear platform. It scraped across the asphalt with a sound that tightened every muscle in my back. Bennett removed the document from Diane's folder. The plastic sleeve reflected the blue emergency lights. Emergency Civil Enforcement Order, he read. County Civil Court authorization for vehicle seizure and police assistance. Check the case number, I said. Diane's eyes narrowed. The order is valid. Bennett studied the page. Behind him, his partner opened the tow hook. That was when Evelyn stepped onto the porch. She wore her charcoal coat and carried a coffee mug in one hand. Her black leather handbag hung from the other shoulder. Diane turned toward her. Mrs. Reed, please convince your husband not to make this worse. Courthouse clerical experience does not give either of you authority to obstruct an officer. Evelyn placed her coffee on the porch rail. Officer Bennett, she said, what court issued that order? He glanced down. County Civil Court. Which judicial seat? His finger moved across the bottom of the page. Seat 4. Evelyn walked down the steps. Her shoes clicked once against the concrete, then went silent on the damp grass. May I see it? Bennett hesitated before holding the sleeve toward her. Evelyn did not touch it. She leaned close enough to read the case number, seal, and signature. I watched her eyes move across the page. The filing number is wrong, she said. That format was retired 3 years ago. Diane exhaled sharply. This is an enforcement matter, not a paperwork seminar. Evelyn ignored her. The heading identifies seat 4, but that seal belongs to seat 2. Bennett looked again. Then Evelyn pointed to the signature. And that is a scanned image from Reed versus Halpern Construction. A public decision issued 2 years ago. Diane's fingers curled around the red folder. You cannot possibly know that. Evelyn opened her handbag. The zipper sounded unnaturally loud in the quiet street. She removed a black leather credential wallet and held it open beneath the flashing lights. Bennett read the identification. His face changed. The color disappeared from his cheeks. His shoulders stiffened, and his eyes moved from the credential to the signature on the order. Judge Evelyn Reed. County Civil Court. Seat 4. His partner stopped beside my truck. The tow driver released the chain. It hit the pavement with a metallic crack. Evelyn's voice stayed level. I hold seat 4, officer. Bennett swallowed. I did not issue that order, she continued. I did not authorize a seizure, and I did not sign my name at the bottom of that page. Diane stepped forward. This is ridiculous. Trevor obtained that directly from the court. Bennett turned toward her. Do not touch the document. I'm the HOA president. Step back, ma'am. For the first time since I had met Diane Caldwell, someone gave her an instruction she could not rewrite. Bennett keyed the case number into the computer inside his cruiser. The body camera on his chest blinked red while we waited. Rainwater dripped from the maple branches. The tow truck idled. No one spoke. Then Bennett returned. There is no active case under this number, he said. There is no seizure order. There is no filing at all. Diane reached for the plastic sleeve. Bennett pulled it away. Ma'am, did you create this document? Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Evelyn stepped back from the evidence. I'm a witness now, she said. I will not direct this investigation, and I will not hear any proceeding connected to it. That sentence mattered. Diane had spent 6 weeks pretending authority meant getting whatever she wanted. My wife had just demonstrated what real authority looked like. It knew exactly where to stop. Bennett placed the forged order inside an evidence envelope. Then he turned to Diane. You're coming with us to answer some questions. The click of his handcuffs opening cut through the diesel rumble. But as he guided her toward the cruiser, Diane looked past him at me. She was scared. Not defeated. Not yet. Because the forged order was only one document. And somewhere inside the HOA office sat the machine that had printed 39 more. By noon, Evelyn had removed herself from the case. She called the chief judge from our kitchen, standing beneath the same yellow light where she had examined the forged order 12 hours earlier. Her voice stayed formal. No anger. No favors requested. My husband is the complainant, she said. My signature was forged. I am a material witness. Then she asked for an outside judge, an independent prosecutor, and a sealed evidence transfer. Diane would have used power like a hammer. Evelyn handled it like a loaded firearm. Carefully, publicly, with both hands visible. Officer Bennett returned that afternoon with Detective Sarah Cole and a warrant for the Briarwood Glen HOA office. I followed in my truck, but Evelyn stayed home. She refused to stand near the search. That building contains evidence connected to my name, she told me. I won't give Diane one excuse to claim this was personal retaliation. The clubhouse parking lot was still littered with the remains of Diane's celebration. A silver balloon bumped against a light pole. Plastic cups rolled through the gutter. The banner over the entrance read Community Standards Matter. Detective Cole read the warrant to Trevor Lang. He stood behind the reception desk wearing yesterday's shirt and a face the color of wet paper. "I only manage the files," he said. "Then you can show us where they are," Cole replied. The office smelled like stale coffee, overheated electronics, and Diane's perfume. That scent was everywhere. On the chair, in the hallway, even near the industrial printer beside Trevor's desk. Bennett lifted the paper tray. The damaged roller had left a black crescent on the top test page. The same mark as all 39 notices. The same mark as the forged court order. He looked at me. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Detective Cole photographed the printer, tagged it, and removed the hard drive. Another officer opened a locked filing cabinet using a key from Trevor's desk. Inside were folders labeled with street addresses. Mine sat near the front. Reed, escalation. Behind it were 16 more. Alvarez, Pike, Morris. Families I knew. Families who had paid fines quietly because Diane had taught them that resistance cost more. One folder belonged to Margaret Lewis, a 72-year-old widow who had sold her house 3 months earlier after the HOA threatened foreclosure over landscaping penalties. Her folder carried a yellow label. Pressure property. Cole opened a second drawer. Every file inside had the same label. Trevor's breathing changed. Short. Fast. Wet. "What does that mean?" Bennett asked. Trevor stared at the carpet. "I don't know." Detective Cole set a laptop on the desk and connected the seized drive. A folder appeared on the screen. Court ready. Inside were scanned seals, blank enforcement templates, and cropped signatures taken from public court records. Evelyn's signature appeared 11 times. Different sizes. Different resolutions. One file was named Seat 4_final. Bennett swore under his breath. Then Cole found the spreadsheet. 17 homeowners. Fine totals. Lien dates. Mortgage balances. Estimated distress sale values. Beside each name was the same company. Briarwood Residential Holdings, LLC. Trevor was listed as the registered agent. Diane owned 49%. The room went silent except for the printer cooling beside us. This had never been about my open garage. The fines were pressure. The liens were leverage. Diane targeted homeowners who looked tired, isolated, deployed, widowed, or short on money. Then her company purchased their homes below market value after the HOA made staying impossible. My $3,900 fine was not punishment. It was an opening bid. Cole turned toward Trevor. "You can explain this downtown." His knees nearly folded. "I didn't choose the houses," he whispered. Diane did. Bennett stepped closer. "Did she tell you to forge the order?" Trevor covered his face with both hands. "She said to make it look court-ready." The phrase hung in the stale air. Exactly the kind of sentence Diane believed could never become evidence. Cole placed Trevor in handcuffs while officers carried boxes from the office. Residents gathered outside, watching their private nightmares emerge in labeled bags. I stood beneath the celebration banner as rain began to fall. One drop struck the word standards and pulled red ink down the white fabric like blood. My phone vibrated. A message from Evelyn. Did they find the printer? I looked through the doorway at the black crescent mark on the evidence page. I typed back one word. Everything. The room where Diane Caldwell lost her voice was the same clubhouse where she had once ordered security to remove me. Only this time, there were no empty chairs. Residents filled every row. People stood along the walls, holding folders, violation notices, and old certified letters. 2 local reporters waited near the back beneath the banner Diane had used for her celebration. Community Standards Matter. Someone had crossed out the word standards with black marker and written evidence above it. The air smelled like wet coats, overheated lights, and coffee that had been sitting too long. At the front table sat Judge Robert Kessler from the neighboring county, appointed after Evelyn formally recused herself. Beside him were Detective Cole, Officer Bennett, and an assistant district attorney named Laura Finch. Evelyn sat 3 rows behind me, not in a robe, not on the bench. She wore a dark blue suit and held no folder, no gavel, no visible badge of authority. She was there as a witness. Diane entered 10 minutes late. Cream-colored suit, pearl earrings, hair sprayed into place. She walked through the center aisle, like she still expected people to move for her. No one did. Trevor had already agreed to cooperate. That changed everything. Diane sat beside her attorney and arranged a yellow legal pad in front of her. Her hands looked steady until Officer Bennett began playing the body camera footage. Blue lights filled the projector screen. My driveway appeared. The tow truck. The red folder. Diane's own voice rolled through the speakers. The order is valid. Then came Evelyn's voice. I hold seat 4. On screen, Officer Bennett checked the database. There is no active case under this number. A murmur moved through the room. Diane stared at the table. The footage continued until Bennett asked the question that mattered. Ma'am, did you create this document? The video froze on Diane reaching for the forged order. Assistant District Attorney Finch stood. Mrs. Caldwell, you told officers that the document came directly from the court. My property manager handled court filings. Trevor Lang. Yes. Finch lifted a printed email. Then why did you write, and I quote, make it look court-ready? Police won't question the seal? Diane's attorney objected. Judge Kessler overruled him. The email appeared on the screen. Diane's name. Diane's account. Diane's timestamp. I watched her thumb press hard enough against the legal pad to bend the cardboard backing. Finch displayed the printer test page next. The black crescent stain curved across the upper right corner. Then she placed copies of my 39 notices beside it. Every stain matched. One by one, the people Diane had pressured came forward. Harold Pike testified that his signature had been forged on board minutes. Susan Bell confirmed there had never been a unanimous vote. Mrs. Alvarez showed video of Diane ordering residents to stop recording a public HOA meeting. Then Margaret Lewis walked to the witness table. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her gray coat hung loosely from her shoulders. I sold my home for $80,000 below market value, she said. They told me the fines would take everything if I stayed. Finch displayed the purchase records. Briarwood Residential Holdings LLC had bought Margaret's house. Diane owned 49% of the company. A sound escaped someone behind me. Not a word. More like pain finally finding air. The spreadsheet appeared last. 17 names. Lien amounts. Mortgage balances. Estimated distress prices. Mine was number 18. Reed, garage business. Likely resistant. Escalate with vehicle seizure. Diane leaned toward her attorney and whispered something. He did not answer. Finch turned toward Evelyn. Judge Reed, did you sign the enforcement order used at your residence? No. Did you authorize anyone to copy your seal? No. Did you direct the police investigation? No, why not? Evelyn looked toward the judge, then the residents. Because authority has limits. Those limits are what make it lawful. Diane suddenly stood. This entire proceeding is retaliation, she shouted. She used her position to destroy me. Every head turned toward Evelyn. She remained seated. Diane pointed at her. You think that robe makes you untouchable? Evelyn's expression did not change. You didn't forge my power, Diane, she said. You documented your crime. Silence followed. Clean and absolute. Judge Kessler revoked every lien connected to the false records and authorized the seizure of the HOA's financial accounts for restitution. The district attorney announced charges for forgery, fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and filing false instruments. Detective Cole approached Diane. The pearl bracelet on Diane's wrist trembled as Cole replaced it with steel. The handcuffs clicked shut. That was the loudest sound in the room. As officers led her toward the exit, Diane looked at the residents she had controlled for years. No one stepped aside. She had spent all that time making people afraid of paper. In the end, paper was exactly what buried her. 3 months later, the red notices were gone. Every one of them. The county removed the lien from our house, voided the $3,900 fine, and froze the HOA accounts until every victim had been identified. By the end of the audit, Briarwood Glen owed residents more than $200,000 in illegal penalties, legal fees, and forced sale losses. Margaret Lewis received the largest payment. It did not give her house back. Nothing could. But it gave her enough to move into a small place near her daughter, where no one measured her grass or threatened to take the roof over her head. Trevor pleaded guilty and agreed to testify. Diane lost her real estate license before her criminal trial even began. The white Lexus disappeared from her driveway. Her house went dark. The curtains stayed closed while reporters gathered at the curb where she had once parked to watch me receive violation notices. The neighborhood elected a new board. Harold Pike became temporary president, though he hated the title and refused to keep the gavel. "No one needs a hammer to discuss landscaping," he said. The new rules were printed on 4 pages instead of 47. No daily fines without a verified hearing. No liens without independent legal review. Every meeting recorded. Every dollar audited. Every resident allowed to see the books. Simple rules. The kind that did not require fear to enforce them. On a clear Saturday morning in November, I opened my garage door at 8 o'clock. The motor hummed overhead. Cold sunlight spilled across the concrete floor and caught the sawdust floating in the air. The smell of fresh oak returned before the sound of my sander did. For a second, I stood there with my hand on the switch. 39 mornings of red paper flashed through my mind. Diane's heels on the driveway. The tow chain scraping asphalt. Officer Bennett staring at the forged signature. Then I pressed the button. The sander came alive. No police arrived. No red folder appeared. No white Lexus stopped at the curb. Only Rachel Morris, walking up the driveway with her 2 children while Daniel followed behind her in uniform. He had come home from deployment the night before. The dining table was waiting for them. 8 feet of white oak, smooth as glass, with rounded corners and thick legs built to last longer than any of us. I had carved a small crescent moon beneath one edge. Not because of Diane. Because some marks deserved to be reclaimed. Daniel ran his palm across the surface. "You built this while all that was happening." "Most of it." He looked toward the open garage. "Why didn't you stop?" I glanced at the truck still parked exactly where Diane had tried to seize it. "Because that was what she wanted." We carried the table to the clubhouse together. The building no longer smelled like stale coffee and expensive perfume. Someone had opened every window. Children ran between the chairs while neighbors arranged food across folding counters. No reserved seats. No security guard. No gavel. Mrs. Alvarez taped a new sign above the entrance. "Community means everyone." Evelyn arrived after noon carrying 2 pies and wearing the same gray sweater she had worn at the first HOA hearing. Margaret Lewis came with her daughter. Officer Bennett stopped by after his shift, still in uniform, but without the tension I remembered from that morning. He shook Evelyn's hand, then mine. "I'll never forget that order," he said. "Neither will I." He smiled. I mean her face. That made all 3 of us laugh. Late that evening, after the food was gone and the clubhouse lights had gone dark, Evelyn and I walked home beneath the maple trees. Inside, she removed her judicial credential from her handbag. I followed her to the hall cabinet. The walnut box I had built years earlier sat beneath the same stack of grocery coupons. She opened the brass latch and placed the seat 4 identification onto the red felt. The leather made a soft sound as it settled inside. Then she closed the lid. No ceremony. No speech. Just power returning to its proper place. I looked through the window toward the garage. The door was still open. My truck sat beneath the work light. The final red notice was framed above the bench beside the court order Diane had forged. Not as trophies. As reminders. Diane believed authority came from letterhead, threats, and making other people feel small. My wife knew the truth. Real authority knows its limits. Real justice keeps records. And when it finally arrives, it does not need to shout. It only needs the right name, the right evidence, and the patience to let a liar sign one document too many.